6 years ago, I sat on a beach in Santa Barbara, overwhelmed with panic. After years of heartbreak, failed fertility treatments, and mounting debt, I knew I had to face what I'd been avoiding: bankruptcy. For a long time, I carried deep shame around this, but looking back, I see that filing for bankruptcy wasn't a failure, it was an act of survival. In this episode, I'm sharing the hard truth about hitting financial rock bottom several years ago and the unexpected lessons and grace I gained from starting over. If you've ever felt ashamed about money or afraid to admit you're struggling, this one's for you. Welcome to Herself, a space for women to have deep conversations about the intersection between spiritual entrepreneurship and fulfilling your potential, so you can become the woman you truly are in every area of your life. After being in business for over 2 decades, I've learned, as you likely have too, that as you grow your business grows you in unexpected, often challenging, yet miraculous ways. Here, we'll talk about how to get out of your own way so you can grow a business that's abundant and sustainable while allowing you to be a force for good in the world. I'll give you simple, actionable strategies as well as wisdom and inspiration to help you root into your wholeness, lead from your values, and work in ways that feel deeply aligned so you can bring your true self into the world through your business and in every area of your life. If you have been here for a while, you know that I have never shied away from sharing the hard stuff, the real, raw, unfiltered parts of my journey. I've opened up here about having an abortion, my relapse into bulimia while writing my first book, the profound heartbreak of betrayal, and the devastation I felt after failed fertility treatments. Now, these were not comfortable stories to tell, not by a long shot. And I didn't share any of them until many years later, when I was ready. After I've had the space and privacy to do my own healing, to feel what needed to be felt, and to see what needed to be seen, I've shared. I've been very intentional about not sharing things publicly until all of my parts felt on board with doing so that it didn't override any of my inner self's needs. But when I did ultimately share these things, I did so because I was ready. Because I know that a big part of my soul's purpose is to learn from my own life experiences and to share them with you, to share them with other women, in service of you not feeling so alone, so weird, so wrong in whatever challenges you face in your life, past, present, or future. I've shared them because I deeply believe that when we're willing to be vulnerable, to speak our truth about, yes, the messiest parts of our human experience, we create space, magical, healing space, not just for ourselves, but for the collective too. Especially for us women, because so much of our suffering happens in secrecy, in silence, in isolation. And this is one of the biggest reasons why I'm so committed to creating healing communities for women where we can be our real selves and tell the truth. Because we all know that healing, especially for women, happens in community. So today I want to take this even deeper into a topic that feels perhaps like the most taboo of all, which is kind of hard to believe because all of these topics I've shared here that I named have been quite taboo. And what I'm talking about now is the topic of money. Specifically, I want to talk about something I once believed would never be part of my story. That chapter in my life, which happened several years ago, when I realized I needed to file for bankruptcy. Now, in retrospect, prior to that, I carried some judgments about people who declared bankruptcy. I believed, probably unconsciously, that it only happened to people who were careless or irresponsible with their finances, and that it was somehow a moral failing. And these judgments, I know, came from my own cultural conditioning, and I'm not alone in having held them. You may even be noticing those same judgments coming up towards me right now. But then, several years ago, I found myself standing in exactly that position. After navigating several years of intense personal hardship, those failed fertility treatments, profound betrayals and heartbreak, and trying to keep my life afloat, trying to keep delivering my soul's work with no steady paycheck, no financial safety net, I came to a point where I realized I had no other really wise choice. And no doubt it was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make. I felt like I failed not just myself, but my vision of what was possible, my dream for my life. I carried so much shame that for the first few years, my mom was literally the only person who knew about what happened. So, as a female entrepreneur with no partner, no 9-to-5 job, no family money to lean on, and no clear path forward, I felt completely isolated. And honestly, that sense of isolation is part of the larger problem. So, our world teaches women to feel disempowered around money. We are subtly and for sure not so subtly encouraged to avoid the conversation, to keep our heads buried in the sand, to pretend like everything's fine, even when it's profoundly not. And when things do fall apart financially, the shame, oh my gosh, it can be overwhelming. But here's the truth I want to share with you today from my wholeness, not from any of my wounded parts. My filing for bankruptcy was not a failure. It was an act of sovereignty and of survival. And in many ways, it was also an invitation to face my deepest fears, to rebuild my life and my work from the ground up, and to create a fundamentally new relationship with money, one that's more aligned, more honest, and ultimately more empowering. And the only way I can say any of this is because I faced the truth and I did the hard inner and outer work to grow and learn from this experience. So if you too are walking through your own season of financial struggle right now, if you're feeling ashamed, stuck, scared, I want you to know with every fiber of my being that you are not alone. And I'm sharing my story today, not because it's easy or comfortable, because it's not. Feels super vulnerable, even several years later. But because I believe that when we tell the truth about our hardest moments, when we feel ready, we can create a ripple effect of healing for ourselves, for every woman who hears our words and thinks, me too. So this is my story. It's an excerpt from my latest book, Handbook for the Heartbroken. And I hope that in sharing it, it helps you feel a little less alone in your story and maybe even offers a glimmer of what's possible when we embrace our financial journeys as a path of also spiritual and soul growth. Santa Barbara, California, January 2019. As I set my flip-flops down on a rock, my toes slipped into the silky beige sand. Sadie rushed past me, her floppy ears blowing backward in the wind. I'd made it. I'd finally made it. Here I was, on that beach that I'd envisioned walking on for the past couple of years. In the distance, jagged cliffs housed fuchsia bougainvillea and palm trees at their height, and a carpet of sand at their base. It was an early January evening in Santa Barbara. The tangerine circle of the sun was just about to dip below the horizon. Sadie and I continued to walk the beach, about a 30-minute stretch in each direction that we would come to know very well in the year ahead. I drew in a deep breath and could taste the sea salt, the crisp California winter breeze, the warmth of the setting sun, the taste of arrival and of survival. I'd made it. Barely, perhaps, but I'd arrived nonetheless. Sure, I thought I'd arrive with a newly burrowed embryo in my womb, or at least one waiting for me on ice for when I'd be ready for it a few months down the line. My first walk on Hendry's Beach was not as triumphant as I'd imagined during all my early morning visualizations. But still, I'd finally made it. I'd packed everything up, said goodbye to my life in Colorado, giving everything I had to trying to have a child, and then decided to take the leap to create a new life for myself in Santa Barbara. I'd always wanted to live at the beach. I'd always wanted to live in California. I'd always wanted to live here. A feeling of victory pulsed through me, brightening my chest, lifting me up and out of the depression I'd been under for the past many months while living in Chicago. Sure, it wasn't the new beginning I'd wanted it to be, but it was still a new beginning. Still a chance to start over in an incredible place, a place where no one knew me and I could be anyone. I could create anything. I could start over. Yes, the circumstances that led me here were horrible, but maybe now that I was here, what awaited me would be better than I could have ever imagined. Then as I walked on the beach, a voice darted up from deep inside me asking, "Yeah, but how are you going to make this work? Where's the money going to come from?" Panic started to spill across my chest, up my neck, and into my head. My deep breaths became shallow, and my gait quickened. As those challenging, familiar feelings took me over once more, I was reminded that panic, fear, and anxiety are close companions of loss and heartbreak. I don't know yet. I don't know yet where the money's going to come from," another voice inside retorted. It was true. I didn't know where the money was going to come from. I just spent all my savings on IVF, not one round, but two. It all ended up costing much more than I thought it would. Every syringe, every ultrasound, every visit to the doctor, every little thing cost much more than I thought it would or even could. And through it all, money stopped coming in a significant way through my work. It's like the world could tell without me telling it that I was overwhelmed. Dog paddling with all my might to keep myself afloat. I didn't want that to be true. I wanted to feel like I still had it together. I wanted people to think I still had it together, but I didn't, and they didn't. And the money kept going out and out and out without coming in. I know in a lot of ways it was stupid of me to come out here, I told the snarky voice, letting it know I was not a complete idiot. This was one of the most expensive places in this country, heck, the world. And moving super expensive. But what other choice did I have? Stay there in Chicago in my mom's spare room with a tiny window that looked out on a brick wall to get swallowed up in the gray, bleak Chicago winter? "You heard it loud and clear," I said to the snarky voice. That morning after I learned the first round of IVF didn't work, when I was waking up and looking out at another dreary Chicago November morning. The voice that told me I would die if I didn't leave there in December. That even if it was crazy to move to Santa Barbara, I had to come to save myself. "You need to be realistic," the snarky voice cut in. "You've gotten yourself out of financial jams in the past, but this time you're in too deep. You have the business loan you're paying back, the IRS stuff with the accountant who screwed you over, the credit card debt you've accrued to cover the IVF and to fill the gap for the money that's not coming in, payroll you need to make, not to mention your usual expenses, business and personal. And now you have to find a place to stay, to live, and to pay for your pod to get shipped out here. It's just not adding up. You're in way over your head. Like I said, you've gotten out of this in the past, but this time it's different." My solar plexus pulled into a tight ball, moving my breath higher up into my throat. My vision narrowed, the vast sea and sand becoming a tunnel of inner haze. I trudged through forcefully, hurrying to find my way back to my flip-flops, back to my car. Screw this, I thought. I'm not going to let my inaugural walk on the beach end with a near panic attack. I'll figure it out. I always do. So after picking up my flip-flops, rather than stepping over the rocks to make my way back up to the parking lot, I sat down on one of them. Around me were clusters of beach chairs filled with smiling bodies sipping beer from cans. Some people came wrapped in blankets to sit on the benches at the end of the parking lot. Others, like me, perched on rocks. Our bodies and our eyes leaned toward the western side of the water's edge, to where the sun was just about to disappear for the day, to where sprays of lavender, petal pink, and orange spread amongst the clouds. I can't believe I'm here, I thought. I can't believe I get to do this every day if I want to. Yeah, but, the contrarian voice rebutted, you may need to, shh, I cut in. Not right now. Let's just be here, enjoying this moment. Even though I didn't hear the rest of what that voice was trying to say, I'd heard it before. I'd been trying to push the thought out of my mind, to not let it come into being by giving attention to it. But I was past that point. I knew things had gone so far financially that it was highly unlikely I'd be able to turn them around without drastic measures. So while I watched the sunset, like all the others around me who seemed to be living very normal, functional, enjoyable lives, my stomach gripped with fear. I knew that voice was right. I knew it was time to listen to it. I'd made it. I'd gotten there. And now I needed to let that voice in and address its concerns. When I got back to my temporary home, a room I rented on the top floor of a large home in Ojai, I got into bed, propped myself up against the headboard with a couple of pillows, and opened my laptop. Then I did it. I did what the voice had been telling me to do. Well, I guess it doesn't hurt to at least look, I thought. So I Googled bankruptcy lawyer Santa Barbara. Seeing those 4 words, black type against white screen, brought back that punched in the gut feeling. But it actually didn't feel as scary as I thought it would. I scrolled through the Google search, clicking on the Yelp page for top 10 bankruptcy lawyers in Santa Barbara. So far, so good, I reassured myself. My cursor hovered over the first entry, acknowledging that he shared the first name of both my sister and my late grandfather. Click. As I scrolled through his description and eyed his picture, he seemed kind, honest. Then I read his reviews. He was a lifesaver. He even helped us build up our credit again afterwards to the point where we were able to buy our first home a few years later. My belly started to settle. My lower back relaxed more into the pillows behind me. I let my head rest against the headboard. It won't hurt to just email him, the voice inside said. It doesn't mean you need to work with him, but maybe just go meet with him. Then at least you know what your options are. I clicked on his website, entered my name and email into the contact form, and hit send. Then, as if I wanted to forget about it, to pretend that what had just happened wasn't really happening, I flipped my laptop closed and shifted my gaze from the screen to the darkness beyond the window in front of me. Looking back, I can see that day in California several years ago was an act of great courage. It was a necessary step to reclaim my life, my stability, and my sense of what's possible. And today, over 6 years later, I have a rock-solid financial self-care practice in place, or multiple self-care practices in place. I have a full emergency fund. I pay myself first with every single dollar I earn. I contribute to my retirement investments regularly, and they, along with my entire net worth, is at an all-time high. What I know now is that financial hardship, no matter how devastating, does not define who you are. Your worth is not tied to your bank account, your career success, or the choices you've had to make to get by. If you are walking through your own season of struggle right now, I want you to know that you're not broken and you're not alone. There's no shame in facing hard times, in asking for help, or in doing whatever you need to do to find your footing again. Most every woman who comes to work with me has some wounding around money. Most often it's that she's not tracking it. She's not taking care of it. She feels overwhelmed by it. And this is something we work on healing, both internally by touching into those old money wounds, and also externally by putting new sound financial self-care practices in place, both personally and professionally. I believe that healing our relationship with money and stepping out of the silence and secrecy that so often surrounds all of this is truly one of the most powerful things we can do as women. So if my story has resonated with you, if you felt that same weight of shame, fear, uncertainty in your own way, my hope is that this offers you some comfort, some courage, and a reminder that this is not the end of your story either. You are stronger than you know. And no matter where you are right now, there's still so much possibility ahead for you. And it's never, ever too late to rewrite your money story. So thank you for being here, for witnessing my story, for showing up for your own journey, even though it feels messy and uncertain. And if you know someone who's quietly carrying the weight of financial struggle, I hope you will consider sharing this episode with them. Our financial stories carry so much unnecessary shame, and every time we speak honestly about money, we help to break that very painful cycle. So again, thank you for being here with me today. Thank you for being part of my journey, whether you are new here or you've been with me for many years. Thank you for being part of this community where together we can talk about the real stuff, the hard stuff, and we can find our way through it all together. So until next time, I'm sending you my heartfelt support wherever your journey is taking you today. Thank you for joining me today. And remember, change doesn't come from listening alone. I invite you to commit to taking one small or large, courageous action after today's conversation. One step you can take if you haven't already is to sign up for my Sunday journal. It's a weekly newsletter filled with inspiration and reflections about the intersection between spiritual entrepreneurship and fulfilling your potential to help you become the woman you truly are in every area of your life. You can subscribe at programs-sarahavonstover.com/journal. And if you found this podcast valuable, please share it with the women in your world. Also, I'd be very grateful if you'd leave a review. It helps others find resources like this, and I'd love to hear what's coming alive for you after listening today. Above all, keep going, and never forget the unique offerings you and your true self bring to the world. Until next time, I'm sending you my heartfelt support.